First and foremost, if your friend ever gives you a bag with drugs in it, make sure you find out what your cut of the percentage is going to be for doing that. No, and
That's the wrong answer.
it's the wrong answer. But the truth of the matter is, if you got the bag and you got caught by the cop, it's probably too late to figure out what you should do anyway.
You should know in advance what your cut is. Well, boy, that's a complicated question. One thing you shouldn't do is you shouldn't run because an officer that sees you in that situation may not know why you're running and maybe, decided to do something to stop you. And as a lawyer, I would tell my clients not to say anything because, if you know there are drugs in the backpack, then you're as guilty as the guy that owns the backpack. If you don't know, that may be a defense that you didn't know there were drugs in the backpack, and you don't want to start talking about it because you're liable to say something that will incriminate you.
Not having knowledge that there were drugs in there is actually put you in a position of being innocent and not an accessory?
If you're carrying something and it contains contraband, but you don't have any idea that there's contraband in there, that's a defense. I mean, if you were to go to trial and prove to a jury that you didn't know there was contraband in there, you had no reasonable basis. Now, if you're standing out in the middle of a bad neighborhood and somebody comes up and comes running down the street and he says, "Hey, the cops are after me, will you hold this backpack?" You might assume that there's a reasonable inference there's something in there he didn't want he didn't want to have and he wants you to get stuck with it. But under circumstances, you're sitting on a bus and a friend says, "Here, will you hold my backpack?" You have no idea that there's anything in there. If you can convince a jury that you didn't know there was anything of contraband nature in that backpack, yeah, you'd be, you'd have a right to be found not guilty.
So is the good advice then when someone hands you a package or a backpack?
Don't take it.
Don't take it,
but if you
ask what's in it, or don't ask, because if you ask what's in it, then you have
well,
knowledge.
If you just flaunt the fact that you're trying not to find out what's inside of it, that sort of gives the implication that you have some suspicions there's something that you shouldn't have in there. So, I mean, if it's a friend and he says, well, we're not in a society where your friend says, "Hey, will you hold my coat?" And you say, there may be something in there, you're not going to do it. But if it's under circumstances where it's reasonable to assume that you had a suspicion there was something of contraband nature in there, you can get stuck with it. If you can prove that you didn't have any reasonable basis to think there was contraband in there, then you're entitled to an acquittal.
Personally, I do appreciate your intrigue in the matter, and I have a bag I'd like you to hold after the show. Thank you.